this recording to the user group's YouTube channel. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Nova Data Platform Meetup event. Long delayed, several times rescheduled. I apologize for that. We're going to have this meeting in person, but we wound up having some sponsorship issues that didn't kind of align with when we wanted to execute this. So anyway, so it's June 13th, 2025. I'm Tim McAlilly. I'm a Microsoft Senior Cloud Solution Architect. And today, to talk about SQL Server 2025, we've got Raj Pochiraju, and he is a Microsoft Principal Program Manager. And what we're going to talk about today, we'll cover some community updates, and then we're going to jump into Raj's presentation. Just real quick on an update here, we've got a AI community conference in Reston. It's an in-person event. It's in the Reston Garage. If you've ever been to the Reston office on Freedom Drive in the Reston Town Center, there's a nice little garage kind of community area there, and it's going to take place on July 10th and July 11th, Thursday and a Friday, and you can search for that on communitydays.org. And if you're wondering how come we don't really have many more of these meetings, it's just times have changed, and we try to do the larger events rather than the monthly user group type meetups. And then, I myself am running out of time, running out of runway. I got my master's degree, and I'm now in a doctoral program at George Mason University, and I'm also an adjunct professor at George Mason University. So I don't really have a lot of time for the monthly grind of user group coordination. So if you're interested in taking over this user group or jumping in at a leadership level, that's let's talk about that. Anyway, I'm going to pass it over to Raj and let him begin his presentation on SQL Server 2025. Raj, sir, take it away.
Sounds good. Let me start sharing my screen first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll stop. Here we go.
Okay, let me.
Very good. We can see your screen.
Let me put this a little bit aside here so that okay. So I'm going to briefly switch on my video for introduction, and after that I'm going to switch off to focus more on the presentation aspects of it. So my name is Raj Pochiraju, and I'm a Principal Program Manager at Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft a little more than or maybe close to 21 years. All these times I've been primarily focusing on SQL Server technology, whether you call on-premises SQL Server when we first started, or Azure SQL. So my whole life is somehow just evolve around SQL Server itself. So when I first joined, I joined as a field engineer, where we used to support the critical customers who have the enterprise agreement with us. If they run into any severe issues, that we go on site and then help customers to resolve those issues. And that the experience that I gained out of it, the knowledge that I gained out of that SQL Server, made me to become as a program manager. I used to manage the SQL Wrap as a service, which is a health check service, proactive health check service, which checks your SQL Server environment and makes sure that if you are running into any risks, it's going to identify those risks, but also provide the mitigation steps so that you can really avoid any critical cases that may cause some outages to your systems. And after that, I led the migration team and the whole migration from on-premises SQL Server to Azure SQL, Azure Database Service. I'm the founding member of the Azure Database Service. And after that, I also worked with the Arc SQL Server, Arc enablement of the SQL Server that really help you to manage your SQL Server estates at scale. And then I moved to the SQL Server. So now I lead the overall SQL Server 2025 release. And we went for public preview last month at the Build conference. You might have seen some of these slides or some of this content in various ways. Like if you attended the Build, you might have seen Bob Ward, our subject matter experts, for presenting our star speaker, actually, let me say that. You might have seen his presentation, or you might have seen some blogs or something. Some of the content you might be familiar with it, but today I'm going to cover the overall theme of SQL Server 2025, the features, and then I'm going to do some play some demos. The demos, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the video that we have recorded demos already that Bob put together for us. So it's a pretty good content, right? If you run into any issues, just let me know watching those ones, right? And then if you have any questions regarding this content or about the features and everything, just type it in the chat so that I'm going to be pausing a little bit in each area when I'm covered with each area. I'm going to pause, and Timothy is going to act as a moderator for me. Make sense? Okay, sounds good. Okay. So before I introduce to you guys the SQL Server 2025, we call the enterprise AI ready database platform, and I'll tell you why we are AI ready inbuilt AI database platform to begin with. But before we go there, each time that we talk about the new SQL Server release, we want to recap or reintroduce some of the innovation that we have been building for last few versions of the SQL Server, right? I'm not going to go back to the complete history starting from SQL Server 4.5 or anything. But if you look at the last three releases, starting from SQL Server 2017, innovation becomes as a main theme for us, right? For the first time in SQL Server 2017, we introduced the SQL Server running on Linux platforms and the Linux containers, right? Previously, traditionally, we used to run only on the Windows platform, but we want to reach to the community where predominantly run their servers on the Linux environment, so that we enabled SQL Server 2017 on the Linux environment. And then performance and tuning is the very fundamental aspect of SQL Server to begin with, and we actually lead the performance benchmarks as well. If you look at the performance benchmarks site, so performance is the key ingredient for SQL Server all these years along. And then we kind of introduced adaptive query processing, automatic tuning, those and also machine learning services as well back in those days. Now it became as a primary topic and primary driver for a lot of those applications and businesses. But we kind of introduced the machine learning services in 2017 timeframe itself. And then 2019, I mainly call out the intelligent query processing, which really help you to dynamically identify your usage of your systems, usage of your applications and queries, and then it has an ability to fine tune some of those queries and then learn from your existing queries and then fine tune them. That is a continuous process. We keep on improving the efficiencies of helping you to fine tune the system on its own. And then data classification is another aspect where first we introduced that really help you to classify your data based on the risk aspects, right? Whether it is a highly classified data or but can it be shared generally, those type of classifications you can start making with your SQL Server databases. 2022, it is more of a cloud connected. For the first time in 2022, we introduced the MI link managed identity managed instance, SQL Server managed instance link, so that you can really use managed instance service on the cloud as a disaster recovery site, or as a matter of fact, you can use MI link even for the cloud migrations as well. So SQL Server 2022 is all more of a cloud connected systems to begin with. And then Ledger is another thing that we feature that we enabled in SQL Server 2022 that really help you to track the data basically. And there are a bunch of T-SQL enhancements also we enabled as part of the 2022. So that's kind of a history. Now let's look at what we have for SQL Server 2025. SQL Server 2025 is an enterprise AI ready database built from ground to the cloud and as well as Fabric. So it has AI built-in capabilities, which I'm going to spend some time on those ones. And then the SQL Server 2025 is built on the foundations of SQL Server, which is like built-in class security. Security has been the primary focus for SQL Server for all these years, basically. So if you look at the number of SQL Server security incidents as compared to the other database vendors, you will see pretty low number of incidents that might have raised with SQL Server. So we are leader in that area as well. And then we have a seamless ability to connect to the Fabric, so that Fabric One Lake, so that you can really run your analytics on the Fabric as more of a unified way. So altogether, what you can do is the capabilities that we built on SQL Server 2025 really help you to build AI-powered applications or AI-ready applications to begin with, that really changes the way that you can provide business services to your customers and clients. Basically, it really allows you to start using the advanced capabilities of like vector search, and then so that it gives you an ability to do a semantic search using the RAG based patterns. And then all you can do is you can combine the semantic search and as well as the traditional T-SQL search into a familiar language of T-SQL. And through that, you can really build the powerful AI applications or AI capabilities to your applications, basically, right? So that's the strength of SQL Server 2025 to begin with. And then if you look at the evaluation of SQL Server in general, right? Deploy once, but you should be able to, sorry, develop once, but you should be able to deploy anywhere, all right? Because the same SQL Server engine runs on both on, anywhere, like whether you talk about on-premises SQL Server or a SQL Server which is running on a different cloud, or a SQL Server which is running on the Linux, or a SQL Server which is running on Azure, or a Azure SQL DB which is hosted in the Fabric. Anywhere that you have SQL Server, it is the same engine, same capability, same set of capabilities. So you develop once and deploy anywhere that you want. So that's kind of a flexibility that SQL Server offers for us. And then the way that you interact with SQL Server, whether through your application APIs or through T-SQL or the tools like Managed Studio or Fabric, the same set of tool set works exactly the same way, no matter where the SQL Server is being deployed, so that you don't have to learn new, right? Because that you are running your Azure SQL versus on-premises, it doesn't mean that you need to really learn new set of tools. The same set of tools or the same set of interfaces or the APIs will really help you to develop once and then deploy anywhere your SQL Server. So that's another key aspect that I want to make sure that we get there. So when I say enterprise AI ready database from ground to cloud, what that really mean is that, as you see, first of all, we built the entire SQL Server on the foundations of security and as well as the mission critical engine. So SQL Server is known for secured by default and as well as offers or serves the mission critical database engine features that really help you to run your mission critical and as well as the business critical applications to begin with. And now it is also integrated with Fabric, so that you can now seamlessly replicate your data from on-premises operational data to the Fabric One Lake, so that you can start running analytics in a unified platform. But at the same time, you can also start leveraging the AI capabilities on the Fabric, so that you can get much more richer insights from your data, right? Whether it is a Copilot or any other AI capabilities that really help you to generate reports without writing a code, those kind of things that you can really leverage to build intelligence to your applications to begin with. AI built in, now you can really leverage any models that are deployed anywhere, and then you can be able to call into those models, and then you can start generating the embeddings and as well as the vectors out of it, and hence you can start within the database itself. You can start really doing the semantic search using the vector functions, right? And the good thing is that the vector data and as well as your traditional relation data can coexist within the same SQL Server database. So you're not really talking about two different systems any longer. It is just a one system, one database where your structured, unstructured data stores and as well as your vector data also coexists. Embeddings data also coexists within the database itself, and then you can really leverage the familiar T-SQL language itself to enable the semantic search to your applications. That way, you can really provide an AI-powered applications or the workloads to your customers to begin with. So that's the beauty of the SQL Server um, 2025, which we are going to be dwelling to it, right? And and SQL Server is Arc enabled. That way, you can really start leveraging, optimize your licensing as well with the Arc, and also you can be able to manage and your SQL servers at scale using the Arc enablement, and you can also secure your SQL Server for outbound and inbound connections through Arc. And now SQL Server is assisted by Copilot, whether you call it as a the management studio Copilot, that you can really get insights, not only get insights for your data, the schema of your the SQL Server databases at scale, but you can also get insights from your data as well. And we are the benchmark leader when it comes to the performance and tuning. And SQL Server is optimized to run on the latest hardware. We always work with hardware vendors like Dell, Nvidia, and then HP. We make sure that we optimize the SQL Server is optimized with the latest hardware to begin with, and obviously built in all platforms, whether it could be an on-premises environment or whether it is a Linux environment. It is just built for all the platforms with the with the familiar experiences that you can leverage with. So there might be a few questions that you might have in your mind, given that SQL Server 2025 went on to the public preview. You might be asking like when it is going to be generally available, and then what type of pricing and licensing changes are they going to come. Most of these questions that you got here, we are going to be planning to announce at our GA. And the GA happens in H2 of the CY calendar year 2025, right? Until that point of time, we don't have much to announce in terms of licensing, pricing, editions. The upgrade path also, we are going to start supporting upgrade path, and we will give you the paths in terms of, how does that upgrade experience is going to look like, any deprecated features or retirement features. Most of these key questions are going to be addressed during our GA announcement. So I'm going to pause there a little bit if there are any questions before I go to AI building.
I don't see any questions.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, now, built-in AI, how does it really help actually? What problems that it is going to solve? So if you look at the traditional SQL type of queries, they're kind of very limiting in the sense where, whether you use the like operator, whether you use the where condition predicate, these are all, these are all the T-SQL functionality or the SQL functionality in general, no matter which database itself is that, right? It's kind of some way limiting. It might require like exact matches, or maybe you should start providing some kind of a patterns. But with the AI capabilities all over the space, it really enable you to do a much more smarter searching on your existing data, right? You can literally talk to your data basically rather than providing the search conditions. Um, Not only that, you can also bring your document content, text content, video content, everything into the SQL Server database along with the traditional relational data, and coexist as in the form of the vectors, so that all of a sudden you can start querying the database, or the data from your document content, your PDF content, and as well as your relational content as well. So that way you will have a single place where you can meet all your search criteria and in more a smarter way, right? And it also provides the building blocks in terms of the agents, the AI agent, intelligent assistants, the RAG APIs that really help you to build applications which are powered with AI to begin with. Um, and then SQL Server is known for the highest standards of the security. So all these capabilities that we built on the AI for the AI purposes, they are also start leveraging the the fundamental foundational the secured platform of SQL Server. So it gives you an assurance that you can really build AI applications without sacrificing your security, by leveraging the security foundations of SQL Server to begin with, right? And then it just overcomes the complexity to perform semantic searches, right, or perform the smarter searches, and that too you can really leverage. You can use your familiar T-SQL language itself. You don't have to learn something new. You can just leverage your existing T-SQL to be able to go and perform those type of smarter searches, which you're going to be seeing in a bit. So what does this really mean? Like, how does it, right? So you have your embedding model, whether the embedding model can be running in the on-premises to begin with, or the model that you might be hosting in Azure AI, or the model is OpenAI, doesn't matter regardless, right? You can leverage that modeling, whichever the model that you have, and then start generating the chunks out of that. And then you also can start generating the embeddings, and then you can store them in vector store, right? Embeddings are nothing but think about embeddings. If you're not familiar with vector embeddings, or the vector are the numerical representation of your data, right? Simply numerical representation of your data. And then when you start comparing two objects that are converted into the embeddings, then it will know the way that it will find out the similarities is through the vector distances, right? It's kind of a mathematical concept altogether, right? Um, so you can generate those embeddings for all your data and then store those embeddings in the database itself. So we introduced a new data type called vector, and you can start storing the embeddings in the vector along with your SQL Server database and with other relation data, right? That's the first thing that you do. Once the embedding data is enabled, once the embeddings of the vector data is available, the first thing is, in order for you to perform the search, is that you're going to be providing a prompt. Prompt is nothing but you're just asking, like, question, like how many products that I sold for a specific region, for example, right? That's kind of a prompt. uh, in the past, to get that kind of a response, you have to write some T-SQL command, right? T-SQL search or a T-SQL query saying that you need to go and then from the product table itself, and then you have a where predicate where it is. But now you can do a simple prompt within an English, right? So when you generate that prompt, what will happen is that prompt will also get converted into a vector, right? And then the prompt vector is going to be now compared with the vectors that represent your products in your database, which are generated through these embeddings, and then find out the vector distances between them, or do a vector search based on the prompt vector with all the other vectors that are sitting in the database, and then you're going to give you the closest match of those that can match with the prompt, basically, right? That's how it actually works. So vector, and this really enables the hybrid search, because you're going to be using a T-SQL, so that you can combine the vector search and as well as traditional T-SQL search with where predicates and everything into a single query. That way you can really get the hybrid search capabilities to begin with. That's the key aspect of it, right? And then at the same time, you can also use these language models to, in your application, you can also use your language models to perform the search with augmented generated response as well. So that way you're combining the vector searches and as well as the augmented generated queries as well, into a single application, so that you can really perform in hybrid and more smarter searches to your applications, so that customers really get a lot of insights from those database applications to begin with. And the thing is, the prompt may contain or may not contain the words which are exist in the data. This would be an impossible thing when you write queries in a SQL language, where you have without matching a specific where criteria, where condition criteria, it would not be possible. But with this technology, the prompt may contain words or not contain words which are stored in the data to begin with. The key components here to build the scalable AI applications using the agentic RAG are the vector search. Basically, it enables the vector search for you to have a smarter search, structured queries, and operational RAG. So you can combine the structured queries and vector search and as well as the operational RAG. And then combine these techniques to build a powerful AI applications for your customers. So key components are vector store. So we introduce a native vector data type and as well as the disk and index so that your vector searches are going to be more efficient. And then we also gave you ability to manage the model. That means to declare a model within SQL Server, pointing to a model that is hosted anywhere, like whether it can be OpenAI, whether it could be a locally stored model, or whether it can be OpenAI. It doesn't really matter. So it will give you an ability to create a model or declare a model within the SQL, and then start leveraging that model within the SQL Server space. It also gives you built-in functions. We gave the built-in functions to generate to chunk the text that you are inputting into the model, and then generate the embeddings based on those chunks, and then simply store those embeddings into the database itself. And hence you can start writing queries, whether using the vector distance queries or vector search, right? In both ways, like you can do either vector distance or you can leverage the vector indexes and do the vector search, right? Each has different use cases for you. And we also integrated with a framework like LangChain, semantic kernel, so that you can really develop these applications using these frameworks to begin with. Okay, so this is the same aspect where you create the embeddings by pointing to the models which are hosted anywhere, like whether it can be Azure OpenAI or OpenAI Olama. Olama, you can run it locally. It doesn't really matter. So what you do is at first is you would create a model within the SQL Server database, pointing the model through to any of these models which are hosted outside of your SQL Server through a REST API, right? Once you create the model, define the model in your SQL Server database, you can start leveraging that model multiple times, right? And then you provide a prompt. The prompt goes to the database, and then you generate a vector for that prompt, and then that vector will be compared with the rest of the vectors sitting in the database, either depending on the vector distance search that you got or the vector index search that you are going to be using. It's going to give the top matches that the prompt has. So that's the core aspects how it works. For that reason, what we do is we use to call to define a particular model. We use the stored procedure which is built in 2022 itself, but we kind of leverage it more strongly now. SP invoke external REST endpoint. This REST endpoint stored procedure will help you to call into the models which are stored outside of your SQL Server, and then authenticate them through either manager identity or through service principal that you create. We authenticate those models using this particular stored procedure, and then we use that to create the model definitions within the SQL Server. And again, the good aspect of this is that the whole AI models and everything which it runs under the control of the SQL Server security. So SQL Server security is a strong foundation that is built in SQL Server. We are going to be leveraging that SQL Server security framework to really secure your models, right? You can really control which AI models that you want to use, and then which users can have an ability to leverage those models to begin with. Those type of things that you can really start using the SQL Server security foundations to secure your AI models to begin with. And then traditionally we use dynamic data masking, TDE, data encryption. Those techniques are going to become more and more stronger actually, right? And then auditing, SQL Server auditing really help you to who is accessing your data, what logins are trying to get into the SQL Server database and those ones. And then Ledger for the history to track your changes to your data. That also you can Ledger is going to help you that front as well. So security is the foundation for your AI basically, right? That's how it works. Any questions?
done so far.
Okay. Now let me show you some demo. I'm going to play the demo that Bob Ward created. And if you have any difficulty to hear the sound, let me know. I'm going to play it right now. Basically, I'm going to show. So this demo will go how you define a model to begin with, and then generate the embeddings from that model, store them in the SQL Server database, and perform a semantic search based on that. So that's the core aspect of this demo. And as you see here, we are defining a model within the SQL Server database as an artifact, as an object within the SQL Server database, pointing to a model which is hosted in the local. The provider is Olama.
Let's see the power of SQL Server 2025 as an enterprise.
I cannot hear the sound. Is it only me?
I think the audio dropped.
Yeah, Raj, the audio dropped.
Audio dropped?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Let me share my again. Let me share. Give me a second. Yeah, audio dropped, it seems. Yeah. I don't know why. I'm going to play this again.
Let's see the power of
Can you guys hear now?
Yeah, that
SQL Server
heard a little bit of
2025
Did for a split
Yep.
second.
as an
Yep.
There you go.
enterprise AI-ready
It's working now.
database. As a developer, I can actually test AI functionality with embeddings in my database. First, locally, using the popular provider Olama with an open source embedding model from Hugging Face, I can do that with an easy definition like this. Let's see the power. Then I can come in and create a table and store data in the new vector data type. Then I can easily use a function like this to go get embeddings based on my local model definition and store them in my database. Then I can come in and create a table. Then I can come in and create a table and store data in the new vector data type. Then I can easily use a function like this to go get embeddings based on my local model definition and store them in my database.
Okay.
Description. Finally, I can build a stored procedure for the application that allows me to take in a prompt and other types of parameters to help filter conditions for the query. I can get embeddings for the prompt based on that same model. Then I can go run a query using the new vector search function.
So I'm going to pause here a little bit. So here is what he's doing is that at first he created the embeddings of the data. The data is sitting in a SQL Server database, and then he created an embeddings so that that data will be available for you to do a semantic search. And then in this particular stored procedure, the stored procedure takes an input of the prompt that you're providing, where you want to get the results based on that prompt. And then what we need to do is, because vectors can be comparable only with vectors, so we need to convert that prompt into the vector as well. So that's what the stored procedure, like select vector, get embeddings, and taking prompt as an input, it is trying to generate a prompt, the vector, the vector equivalent of that prompt, and hence he's going to use that in the search, right? So that's and in this case, he's using the cosine search basically
To find similar results from the prompt with data in my database.
I'm going to move to the next.
Finally, I can build a stored procedure for the application.
Sound looks like sound gone. So what he's doing is now he's doing a search here, right? The same stored procedure which has the actual logic of that search. Now he's calling out that stored procedure. He's executing that stored procedure by giving a prompt. This is the prompt: products best for rides on rough ground, right? So he did that. So this prompt will be converted into the vector, and with the cosine search capabilities that the vector search offers, these are the top results that are coming out of the out of that stored procedure to begin with. So that's what how you can start leveraging the your search. You can really do a smart search like this.
Let's use the new Copilot in SSMS to help us look more at the embeddings.
Now, this is the beauty, right? Not only that you can be able to write the queries like this by leveraging the T-SQL, but then you can also use the Copilot. Even this is more, this is top of this actually. This is kind of the next extension of this use case.
In our database. So first I'll ask Copilot to discover the table that has the embedding values in them. With this information in mind, I'm going to ask Copilot to go ahead and look at the embedding values, but join back to get the name and descriptions. You can see now Copilot discovered some example rows for me. Notice in here that the values of products are not just in English. I have multiple languages to support, but the embedding model I use for Olama doesn't support multiple languages, it just supports English. To show you in a developer how a developer can easily use a model now in Azure OpenAI, as you see right here, by simply...
Yeah, in the previous demo, we saw the Olama model, which is locally hosted. Now he's showing the OpenAI model, which is stored in the Azure OpenAI, which is like multi-language model.
Creating a new model definition, this model supports multiple languages. By doing that, if I generate my embeddings again, I can use the exact same code and procedure I did before, just pointing to the new model. So the results could look like this for the same type of search. But because I have multiple languages, I can actually run the same prompt in Chinese and get the results back in the language that supports the prompt. No other database on the planet can do this. The ability to have vector searching built in, using AI models of your choice, both on-premises and the cloud, in an easy-to-use declarative manner.
Sounds good. Excellent. So that's the power of AI that you've seen. Somebody has seen this question actually.
Yeah, well, this is regarding the language differences or translation. Does it translate it on the fly, or is the data is stored in the different languages and just retrieves it?
No, the data will be stored ultimately in vector, right? Vector format. So the vector has an ability to, the model that we have in the OpenAI that he showed, it has an ability to generate a vector out of any language, basically.
Thank you.
Yep. Now I'm switching the gear here, integrated with Fabric. Microsoft Fabric. So basically, Microsoft Fabric is a unified analytical platform for all the data that you want to bring it to your analytical system to begin with, right? It has multiple of the scenarios where you can start leveraging the data factory for the ETL type of jobs. You can generate the real-time intelligence workloads out of this Fabric to begin with. And as a matter of fact, you can start hosting the databases as well. So basically, with SQL Server 2025, what we did is like we continuously replicate the data from your on-premises operational data to Fabric with a zero ETL, right? It's a continuous replication with a near zero latency to begin with, right? Near real time. So that you can really, the biggest advantage of doing this is that you're protecting your operation data from analytical queries. So that you are kind of outsourcing your analytical queries to Fabric to begin with. And then the compute and replication, the compute used for the replication for the Fabric to begin with is no cost. So you're not paying for replication per se. You might pay for how you use that data for the services that you're going to be using it in the Fabric, but for replication itself, you're not paying anything to begin with, right? And the storage used for replication is also free for you. You're not really paying for compute. You're not paying for the storage used for the replication to begin with. So here is I provided a link here. It's already in public preview. The Fabric mirroring for SQL Server. You can download your SQL Server 2025 public preview version now, and then start really working with the Fabric to begin with for the replication. Now I'm going to the developers, right? So yes, you have great AI capabilities that we built, but at the same time, if we don't have the capabilities for the developers to make developer experience friendly, and then it's hard to leverage those features to begin with. So that's the reason we also invested a lot to make the SQL Server more productive for our developers to begin with, and also help the developers to build the modern data applications to begin with, right? We introduced the native JSON data type now with SQL Server 2025 and JSON functions to really query the JSON type of structured data to begin with. And then we also introduced the regex queries that really help you to write pattern queries. Otherwise, it would have been a complex query with the T-SQL, or you might end up with the .NET functionality to do such type of queries. Now, regex becomes as an integral part of T-SQL language that we built, right? And then change event streaming, where you can start, streaming your changes into the event hubs, so that you can really write some event-driven applications to begin with. And then the REST API. So the same REST API that I showed you, which we use it to define the models, the REST API, you can use it for other purposes as well. Like if you have any APIs that you want to call from within the SQL Server context, you can use that REST API to start leveraging the API services to begin with, right? With all these functions that we enabled, it just increases the productivity of the developers to begin with, and bring efficiencies to the applications. And then it gives you a seamless way that you can start leveraging structured data, unstructured data, and as well as build the AI capabilities to your applications to begin with. So those are the high-level features that I want to really highlight today. Let's talk about JSON. So JSON is first introduced in 2020. There are JSON implementations before the 2025, but they're kind of more implemented through varchar and varchar columns to begin with, right? In a non-native way, basically, right? With SQL Server 2025, which you are seeing on the right side, we have a native JSON data type now. You can store maximum up to 2 GB of data. And then the good thing is you can now create a JSON index on top of it, and then start leveraging the new JSON functions to start querying and updating the JSON data, right? And then we have a demo for that as well. Just I want to play the demo to you. Let me know if the sound doesn't play.
So get started with JSON in SQL Server 2025. We've created a database called orders and a table called orders. Notice here the new JSON data type, which stores an industry-leading 2 gigabytes of maximum JSON document storage here in this native data type. So let's a couple of examples here. Number one, I can easily just go insert JSON documents in their native format directly into the table. Now let's look at some of the JSON functions that we can do to process this native JSON type. First one is called JSON value, to pull a particular value out of a JSON document and bring it back in result format. Next, I could just dump out all the JSON values so each document will appear as a separate row in their native JSON format. What we have interesting is a set of aggregate functions. So I could take all the rows of JSON types in the table and produce a single array. So I can produce a single JSON document pulling back all the JSON rows from the native JSON type. A lot of people like to do key value pairs in JSON, so I could use the new objag function to take the order ID key and the JSON document and produce a set of key value pairs. So the order ID is the key and the value is the JSON documents related to it. Another thing I really like is be able to actually modify JSON values directly from their attributes. So here you can see the quantity value inside the JSON document for the order ID is 1 for order ID 1. And I can modify it directly by setting it to using this new modify property of a JSON type. Then I can go here and see the results and I've modified the two directly.
Excellent.
So get started with JSON and SQL.
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with the sound actually.
It happens. No worries.
Let me try to share it again. I don't know why it is dropping the sound. Okay, let me switch the gates here. The regex functions that I want to introduce. There are a bunch of T-SQL enhancements that we made, new functions that we introduced. Top is like regex, where it gives you an ability to write the pattern related type of queries without going through a lot of complexity. The product function will give you to query the aggregations, current date, substring changes, data aid, date add support the begin now, and then string concat operator as well. So these are just the limited list of things that we mentioned here, but my blog has went through a lot of the details of the other functions that we enhanced the T-SQL power, right? And then let me show if I have a demo for regex as well. If it doesn't,
Let's look at the new regular expression capabilities in T-SQL in SQL Server 2025. In this case, I'm going to create a table with employees. I want to make sure I have constraints for valid email addresses and phone numbers. Notice here, though, that what I'm going to do for a phone number is build a regular expression that verifies a phone number in a format that cannot be done with like a like clause, such as a number with parentheses as the first part of the area code. So this table in place, I can go create and do an insert like this, which is valid. But notice here, in the second case, the phone number is not valid. And if I run this, I will get an error with a check constraint failure. Now let's also look at a complex regular expression search for our data. So let's go insert some example employees into our system and go down and do something very interesting. We'd like to find in the email any email address where the second part of the email, after the dot, has the words will in it and ends with .org. And you can see our description we have in our comments about what these various regular expression characters mean to give us this. So when I run this query, I get the answer I'm looking for. The new regular expression syntax has other functions available to you, but this just is a small example of new regular expression capabilities in SQL Server 2025.
yeah. You can really do the things that you were not able to do it with the T-SQL like clause or other such predicates which are traditionally available in T-SQL. Now you can do with the regex without going through the complex code, right? So that's the strength power of the new functions that we got. Now, before I go to security slide, I think you have seen the power of AI, the way that you can be able to define the models, use those models to generate the vector embeddings, and then that way you can really enable a prompt-based, smart stitch capabilities to your applications, and then the developer capabilities with the JSON, the regex where you can do the patterns and other improvements that we made on the change streaming capabilities. So all these features really help you to really build a powerful, intelligent applications for your customers to begin with. But then at the same time, you don't want to, sacrifice on the security in the arm of in the days of the AI world. So that's the reason SQL Server really focuses on securing by default actually. So what we really mean by securing by default, SQL Server is protected by a Microsoft Defender. By ARC enabling your SQL Server, you can use the Microsoft Defender to protect your SQL Server. It's going to proactively look for any brutal force attacks that might be happening onto the SQL Server. It gives you the mitigation recommendations to do. So it's safeguarding your SQL Server through Microsoft Defender. right? And then now any connections which are inbound or outbound, and especially, for example, we called a model definition, right, which is sitting outside of SQL Server, which is an outbound connection. These type of connections, we are securing the authentication through managed identity for both inbound and outbound. We used some of the inbound authentications through managed identity in the past releases, but now we kind of completed that whole functionality with outbound and inbound functionality using the managed identity. And then we are also started adapting the internal communications for the internal components to SQL Server Database Engine using the TDS 8.0 and TLS 1.3 security encryptions, basically. So the connections are going to be more encrypted. And obviously enabled by Azure Arc and Managed Identity and Microsoft Entra is something that you can leverage Arc through enable Microsoft Entra login to the SQL Server inbound. So these are all the various security features that we enabled. And then we also made security cache improvements where security cache is not going to is now limited to, or the scope of the security cache is limited to the specific table where you make the permission changes, basically, right? In the past, whenever you change a permission, the whole security or change into the security model, the whole security cache is going to be rebuilt. But now we don't. We only focus on a specific object that is being impacted. That way, the performance is not going to be impacted through the security cache. Now, let's focus a little bit on the mission critical database features that we kind of introduced. I think I might have a demo for optimized locking. So we brought efficiencies into the way that we optimize the locking to avoid the lock escalations, basically, right? Lock escalation is a problem for the SQL Server in the past where it's going to lock at the very higher level. That way, it is going to block the concurrent queries that are trying to access the same table or a same object where the lock is escalated to. Now, we added more intelligence into the locking mechanism so that you may not run into that kind of scenario. And then we also introduced the batch mode efficiencies for those queries which are going to be running some batch mode batch queries to begin with. And improvements are made with the query processing and execution timelines and reliable failover. A lot of features that are added, or the lot of improvements added to the high availability groups, always on availability groups to begin with. All these will really promote you a reliable failover and the fast failover as well. And also it gives you the improved diagnostics. Like if anything goes wrong within the always on availability groups, then you can be able to track where the problem or the failure happened, and then you can be able to restore it back. So basically, increased reliability of the failovers groups and faster failovers with the tuning flow control, and then improved diagnostics so that you can really identify problems much more quicker and then address them. So those are the features that we incorporated with the availability groups. So optimize the locking, eliminate the lock escalation, and then requires so basically to enable this process, the feature you require ADR actually, right? Accelerated data recovery. And then query execution is another new capability that we added that really help you to stop any rogue query which is taking resources and impacting other queries. You can abort using this particular query hint to begin with. And then so there are improvements that we made for SP_execute SQL. Like a lot of customers applications use SP_execute SQL very extensively. So some of the we honor the compile locks that really help you to optimize the compile locks that we made through the SP, or reduce the compile locks that we put on SP_execute SQL. Okay, let me do I'm sorry, one more demo, and then maybe I can pause for the queries actually.
Okay, first, let's look at a lock escalation problem without optimized locking. So first I want to show you how many locks accumulate. So I've got about 2,500 rows here I'm going to update. When I update this, I can tell by running this query against the DMV for locks that I've accumulated about 2,500 locks here for key locks, 111 for page locks. So what happens if I run enough updates against the table that cause a lock escalation? Now, here I'm only updating 10,000 rows in the system, but you can come here and you can now go run and look at your locks that this has been escalated to an object lock. I'm not updating the entire table, but I'm going to cause a problem because I've got a query over here that can update the maximum value, just one row, and it's going to get blocked. And you can see here from your blocking query that you're running that it's blocked on that original session, but I'm not actually updating a row that's affected by that first one. This is the problem with lock escalation. Okay, first, now let's see what it looks like with a new option called Optimize Locking in SQL Server 2025. Okay, let's go back to the scenario where we're going to update our 10,000 rows. And let's go see what the locks look like. Notice how in this particular case, we have a XACT lock. Now, we have an intent exclusive lock for the table, but only an XACT lock on the table. Which is, if you go over here and now run this query to update the max, you'll see that we are not blocked. This is showing now, if you go look at the locks now, you'll see here that each of them have transaction locks, so they're not blocking each other.
Yeah, so the new concept of transaction lock is introduced not at the object level to have the lock escalation all the way up to the object. That way, the concurrent queries or the concurrent DML operations are not being locked any longer. So it's just improve the concurrency of your databases and increase the availability of your applications to begin with, right? So that's the thing.
Now let's see what it looks like.
Okay, so for the sake of the time, so I just want to re-summarize all the features of SQL Server 2025, built-in AI capabilities, and the developer-friendly features that we introduced really help you to build intelligent applications with a more seamless way that you can promote your applications for the customers to do more of a smarter search, semantic search, and the hybrid search. And then you can really build all those applications using the familiar language of T-SQL. It just increases the productivity of the developer and also increase the efficiency of your applications. And then you are providing more data insights to your customers in a much more easier way. And all this is built on the security foundations that we got, and then all the mission critical features that we traditionally enabled for SQL servers for the years. And then now all these are like operates on a familiar tools, cloud connected through Arc, so that you can start leveraging the cloud services to manage your SQL servers, secure your SQL servers, and this is assisted by your Copilot, so that you can use really Copilot for your database operations, and as well as to get the insights from your prompt engineering, to get insights from your database schema, and as well as from your data. And again, optimize it for latest hardware and built in for all platforms. So that's the essence of your SQL Server 2025. And then I might have some resources here. Yeah. So there are. This is a session that Bob delivered at our Ignite in the beginning when we announced the 2025. And then there are some research that we did with the AMD. Our partner with the AMD running SQL Server on the AMD platform, and then the LinkedIn, the SQL Server LinkedIn references here as well. So these are some of the links that I can do. And we have SQL Server 2025 is publicly available now. You can go and download and then provide us the feedback. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Raj. That was an awesome presentation. Much appreciated. Does anybody have any follow-up questions for Raj before we break?
Yeah, I can stay a few minutes. Yeah.
Doesn't look like we have any questions. Looks like you blew them away. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording then. And I'll post
I got one question. This is Don.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah.
Have you got like JSON data types? There's any plan for the next version? You can consider XML format as a data type in SQL Server.
The XML
to keep that, to keep that as a nested arrays for the search and
Yeah, we support nested arrays within the JSON itself. But XML data type, let me do some follow up on that. Just ping me on the IM so that I can talk to the specific PM who owns that.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Very good. All right, I'm going to quit recording, and we'll post the recording up on the YouTube channel. And if you signed up for this over Meetup or Eventbrite, I'll post that information to the people who signed up.